from Commissioner Jackson's district who are going to tell us a little bit about how having a robust open spaces program benefits their communities. And we'll be able to have a little back and forth conversation with everyone. And so if you want to participate in that via telephone or video, we have two ways to do that. If you're joining us on the phone, you can dial *3 at any time, and that'll put you through to an operator who will screen your call and put you in the queue to ask a question. And if you are joining us online, you can punch a question into the comments box, and we can get to it that way. One thing I should mention is that we're only doing open spaces tonight, so we're not covering any other topics besides open spaces. So keep that in mind as you come up with questions to ask. And then the other thing is that even if you're joining us on the phone, we are recording this. So if you want to watch the slide presentation that goes with this event, you'll be able to do so within about 24 hours of our conclusion tonight. So with that, I will introduce Commissioner Jackson to introduce all the rest of us.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our conversations with Commissioner. As we learned, unfortunately, in the pandemic, having access to our open spaces, trails, parks, and waterways is one of the best things about living in Colorado. Here in Arapahoe County, we've spent the past few decades building and enhancing all of our open spaces programs. Our assets and our programs, our trails, and our parks. These are funded by our open spaces sales and use tax, which is a 1/4 cent tax on retail sales in the county. And this has generated revenue for these programs since 2004. The county uses these revenues to fund our open spaces directly, and we also share with our communities and special districts so that they can fund their own projects and programs. So as a direct result of these revenue streams, Arapahoe County Open Spaces now owns and maintains 15 parks and open spaces across the county, spanning more than 5,000 acres, 4 trailheads, and 20 plus miles of trails. Voters approved the reauthorization of the tax in 2011, and the tax is going to be expiring again in 2023. And so with that deadline in mind, our board is considering whether to send a ballot measure to the voters this fall that would ask for another reauthorization. And so that's why we're here tonight, is to talk to you about how open spaces and funding works and talk about its benefits to our citizens and our communities. So after Shannon Carter, our Director of Open Spaces, goes through his presentation, we're going to hear from a few local leaders about their experiences with the county's open spaces assets. And then we're going to open it up for your questions. So again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And now, Shannon Carter, you have the floor. And welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson, and thank you all for joining us for this presentation. I apologize that I cannot do the video portion of this broadcast, but hopefully we'll be able to gain a lot of information about our Open Spaces program. And so if we can go to slide 2, that would be great. And really, the reason why we wanted to really help our citizens to appreciate what it is we do is really to kind of give you a broad outline of what the Open Spaces program is all about. We work to build and maintain trails, parks, enhance neighborhood and regional parks, preserve natural and heritage areas, preserve and restore wildlife corridors, all the things that really make Colorado the special place that it is. And so really, as Commissioner Jackson mentioned, the Open Spaces program for the county actually owns a number of different parks, trails, and open space, over 5,000 acres that we manage. Slide number 3 will give you kind of a map of where those parks, trails, and open spaces are located. Quite a number of it is along the Cherry Creek corridor, And of course, that is a major trail network that goes from the southern end of the county all the way up to the northern end of the county. And we've got a number of different parks and trails that are along there. And so this slide 3 really kind of focuses in on all of the urban parks that we have in our network. It also includes kind of a little bit of the eastern part of our properties. We do have the county fairgrounds. We also have the historic 17-mile house, which is just along Parker Road. Next slide, slide 4, please. Slide 4 really focuses in on our eastern property. We have close to 4,000 acres that are under management in this area. The big green outline is our largest holding. That's the Middle Bijou holding that we have over close to 3,000 acres. The one that's to the far right is our Rich Mill Ranch open space, which is about 400 acres. It's got, we keep part of it in agricultural production. It's got a nice trail network, shelters, amenities for horseback riding, hiking, and those types of things. And of course, some of the hashtag outlines, those are conservation easements that the county holds or were participated in to be able to preserve and conserve those properties from development. Now, to the left of the screen on slide number 4 is 2 smaller green sections, and that's our Kiowa North and Kiowa South open spaces. Kiowa North is the next park or open space that we're going to be developing. We are holding some public meetings to describe and to get community input as far as what type of amenities. It will really be focused in on providing walking, hiking, equestrian use, having shelters and parking lots. Next slide, please. This may give you kind of a real overview as far as the impact of the Open Spaces program since we started collecting the tax in 2004. We've been able to build 70 miles of new trails or improving existing trails, 168 park and trailhead and heritage area projects. And that heritage areas, of course, as I mentioned, includes the historic 17-mile house, as well as the county fairgrounds. 31,000 acres of open space have either been conserved by the county or our municipal partners or special district partners. So throughout the county, all of these 31,000 acres have been preserved for conservation purposes or making sure that, again, those conservation values are preserved in those acreage. As I mentioned, heritage and education, we hold community events and activities out at the fairgrounds. We just finished up one of the most successful fairs that we've had in the history of our program. Over 35,000 people attended the fair this past weekend. Of course, the 17-Mile House Farm Park has educational tours and also different programs throughout the year. At least once a month, we do tours of the historic house. Our CSU Extension program does a number of environmental education as well as master gardens and other outreach. And so we've done quite a bit with both the Mile High Flood District, with Cherry Creek Stewardship Partners, and other organizations that really provide a lot of environmental education. Slide 6, please. Slide 6 really talks a lot about, again, some of the things that we've described in the past, the protection and restoration through these conservation easements where we buy up the development rights to make sure that the properties, the riparian areas, the environmental stewardship is preserved in those properties. The riparian corridor restoration, now the riparian area is, as you're looking along the plains, perhaps as you're driving along I-70 and you see the various vegetation along the creek bed, the trees and the other underbrush. Those are the riparian areas that we want to either restore for flood control purposes or, again, environmental habitat and environmental restoration. And so we've done a number of projects both on the eastern part of the county and in the urban metro area to restore those habitats and certainly to make sure that, again, they're in good shape. We've also done a number of recreational safety improvements, which bottom line, you can refer to them as the underpasses. We've done a number of projects to get trails underneath major trail corridors underneath really busy intersections. A good example of that is Iliff and it's close to Dayton, the underpass underneath, the underpass for the Highline Canal. We just recently completed an underpass at Colorado and Hampton to get underneath both Colorado Boulevard and Hampton along the Highline Canal Trail. Over in the eastern part of the county, we did an underpass under Gun Club Road. And of course, what's under construction right now is an underpass for the Highline Canal with Mississippi and Parker. So that, of course, enhances the safety and improves the viability of those regional trails. And one of the bigger ones that we've done is, of course, getting underneath Arapahoe Road along the Cherry Creek corridor. So those are safety improvements that we help to fund and coordinate to make sure that, again, we have safe access to our trail network. We also, and I think I mentioned when I was describing the various properties that we own, we keep a number of our properties in agricultural production, where we do farming, hay and wheat production, as well as having grazing. And so that really supports the local community, the local ranchers, and of course, it also provides some public access. And so having that balance of keeping properties in action and also having public access is something that we work very hard on, and we strive to keep and maintain that balance. The other advantage is that the lessees, the ones that lease the properties for agricultural use, they are also part of an extension of our maintenance. They maintain the fences, the water well, the stock wells, and other things that, again, keep the properties in good stead. Next slide, slide 7. How do we do it? Well, the resolution of the open space sales and use tax kind of gives us a guideline as far as how we will share those funds. Commissioner Jackson mentioned that half of the money that we receive, half of the tax dollars that we receive is given back to our cities, towns within Arapahoe County, and it's based upon population. So large cities like Aurora and Centennial get a larger share. The smaller cities get a smaller share. So it's based upon population. But there's also a 12% grant program that cities, towns, and our special districts, that is the special districts that have a recreational purpose, such as South Suburban Parks and Rec, Arapahoe Park and Rec District, all of those apply for grants. So we're able to partner with them to make improvements in the properties within their district, as well as there have been some purchases of properties through our special districts. 26.66% is used for acquisition and development of parks, trails, and open space. 4.1% of the money that we receive is for our heritage areas. We describe what those are. And there's a 4% cap on administrative costs for our program, as well as 3.24% on maintenance. And we'll talk a little bit about maintenance in a few minutes. Over the years, and if you move to slide number 8, over the life of the program, here's our report card, so to speak. From 2004 to 2020, we've received from the open space sales and use tax almost $360 million. Now, that money has been reinvested into the community through our share back program, where the cities and towns receive money from back to those areas. The grant program, $43 million. Joint projects. Now, joint projects is where the county, the special districts, sometimes Mile High Flood District, and other recreational districts really get together to look for regional projects, regional impact. For example, the underpass that I mentioned earlier with Colorado and Hampton, as well as the other two, was part of a joint project between City and County of Denver, Cherry Hills Village, CDOT, and also our transportation departments to really combine money to be able to do those underpasses. And we have a number of projects along the South Platte River that we've done with these joint projects. And so almost $260 million have been reinvested into the community, or 71% of what we've received has actually gone back. Now, as far as local impact, let's move on to slide number 9. Good example of some of these regional projects that we are talking about. The Highline Canal, we've partnered with the Highline Canal Conservancy and others that have really made major improvements to the canal. Again, improved the safety by doing those underpasses. We've done a number of different improvements to the trees, as well as other infrastructure within the canal that we're continuing to look at, and as well as to implement. Another major project was the Buckley Buffer Project, which conserved in perpetuity over 700 acres surrounding the Air Force Base, including putting in a trail network, as well as other buffer areas around the base to really ensure its viability, because we know that airplanes and residential homes sometimes don't get along too well, and so having this buffer kind of eases some of the challenges there. So the program has really made a significant impact to the community over the years. But now, what's next? Moving on to slide number 10. As Commissioner Jackson mentioned, the open space sales and use tax was authorized in 2003 by the voters. And so we started collecting it in 2004. With that original ballot measure, there was a 10-year sunset. So it was due to expire in 2013. Now, in 2011, the board put it out to the voters, and the voters approved an extension of the sales and use tax for another 10 years. And so now it's due to expire in 2023. And over the past year, we've collected a lot of input from through our master plan, through polling, and other public outreach to really ask our citizens how they feel about the impact of the program. Is this something that they would like to see us continue? And overwhelmingly, we have that response has been yes. Also, our Citizens Advisory Board, which is the Open Space Trails Advisory Board, they've been very engaged in not only the program, but also in gathering citizen input, as well as giving us advice. And so we established, or the Board of County Commissioners established, a reauthorization committee, which consists of 2 members of the Board of County Commissioners, as well as 2 members of our Citizen Advisory Board, to really take a deeper dive into the program, to look at some of the challenges as well as some of the successes, and making recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners for any changes to the resolution that they would like to see. We've also been engaged in quite a bit of education in sessions such as this. We've had special meetings with city councils, other special district boards, to really highlight the impact of the tax and get their feedback. And so the Board of County Commissioners will decide sometime next month, early next month, whether or not to refer the measure to the voters. Slide 11. Some of the things that we've heard from our citizens is overwhelming support for where we're going and what we've done. These are some of the comments that we've heard. Maintenance is important for future generations. They love the outdoors. That it's a very popular tax because it does what people value. The fact that, again, we love living in Colorado. We love the recreational opportunities, and this tax definitely supports just that. As I mentioned, as far as maintenance is concerned, that was another message that we heard loud and clear, that the citizens not only value their public spaces, but they also want to make sure that we're maintaining them. And so that was the message that we heard not only from our citizens, but also from our municipal partners, the cities and the towns that are responsible for the maintenance and improvement of these special places. And so slide number 11. Some of the recommendations that we heard from our reauthorization small group, they're proposing, or they're basically recommending to the board to not change anything with the municipal shareback formula. That is 50% that I mentioned earlier that goes to our cities and towns, not making any changes there. No changes to the grant program, that 12% that we spoke of earlier. They are certainly recommending that the tax be made permanent. We heard this from our citizens and others, that it is a tax that is doing what it's supposed to do. And of course, when we purchase property, we're responsible for maintaining it for forever. And so, again, being able to have a funding source to make sure that happens is important. They're also recommending increasing the funding for maintenance. That is for both our cities and towns, as well as the county, to make sure that, again, those special places are not only preserved, but also improved. They're also recommending, of course, to the board to go ahead and refer a tax measure or the reauthorization to the voters in November. So as far as next steps, slide 13, we certainly welcome any questions and input or feedback on what you've heard this evening. Again, the Board of County Commissioners will will decide in August whether to refer this reauthorization in this year's ballot. And of course, what you can also do is keep visiting, keep utilizing the spaces in which we've preserved, as well as utilizing the amenities that we have. So thank you. Slide 14. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Luke.
All right, thanks, Shannon. A lot of good information there. Hopefully inspired a couple questions from our audience. And before we meet our special guests, I just want to remind everyone who's joining us on the phone, if you want to ask a question, you should dial *3, and that'll put you through to an operator who will put you in a queue to ask a question of any of our guests or hosts. And before we get to meeting our guests, I want to ask a quick polling question for those of you on the phone. Please press the corresponding number based on your answer to this. On a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else? Press 1 if you're very likely. Press 2 if you're somewhat likely. Press 3 if you're neutral. Press 4 if you're somewhat unlikely. And press 5 if you're very unlikely. So again, how likely are you to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else? 1 is very likely, 2 is somewhat likely, 3 is neutral, 4 is somewhat unlikely, and 5 is very unlikely. So with that, I will kick it over to Commissioner Jackson, who will introduce our two guests.
And for that really interesting and useful presentation. Lots of information there. So before we get to our open discussion, as was mentioned, I want to welcome two of our local leaders, Kevin Hogan and Linda Strand. We're going to ask them some questions and let them kind of answer them in terms of their own experience with Arapahoe County's open spaces. So Kevin is the president and CEO of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. And Linda is a former board member of Great Colorado Outdoors as well as our OSTAP, or our Open Spaces Citizen Advisory Board. They're both joining us tonight on the phone, and so I'll ask them a few questions, put them on the spot a bit. So first, Linda, I want to welcome you, and as we were chatting a little bit earlier, it's been a long time since I've seen you, but I want to thank you for all that you've done for open spaces in Colorado, and of course, especially in Arapahoe County. So in that regard, would you tell us a little bit about your background in general, and talk to us about your experience with Arapahoe County open spaces?
Well, I worked for the city of Aurora in their Parks and Open Space program for 31 years. So spent a lot of time watching the city grow and understanding the park and open space needs of the citizens of the city. Retired in 2006. And then in 2010, I joined the Arapahoe County Open Space Trails Advisory Board and was there for 9 years, so from 2010 to 2019. And then in 2013, I was appointed by Governor Hickenlooper to serve on the Great Outdoors Colorado Board of Trustees. Served 8 years there, 2013 to 2021, so just went off that board earlier this year. And when people used to ask me what I was doing in my retirement, I used to laugh and say that I got to be involved in investing over $65 million a year in parks and open space in the state of Colorado. And I have to say that it was one of the greatest privileges of my life. So it was a wonderful, wonderful time. In the county, in addition to just the much needed funding for local governments to provide parks and open space, I think the thing that struck me the most was the county's ability to provide leadership and funding to facilitate and incentivize projects with partners. So you look at partnerships like all of the communities along the Highline Canal, and I can't remember, I'm sure Shannon has a number of, I think there's 13 or 14 different jurisdictions on the Highline Canal, and the county served an invaluable role in facilitating and incentivizing projects along that canal. Similarly, on the Platte River, if you go on the Platte River now, you can surf on the Platte River. You can fish on the Platte River, which in the 1960s and 1970s you couldn't fish. It's become just a marvelous waterway for parks and recreation. Cherry Creek, which Shannon mentioned earlier, is a wonderful trail corridor with which you can really get away from the urban area. And then I think the conservation of big natural projects that are usually too large for local communities, the projects that we have along the Bijou Creek. And then finally, I think the other thing that people seem to sort of forget is that the county helps provide a significant amount of matching funds for larger grant programs like the ones that Great Outdoors Colorado does. So if Great Outdoors Colorado frequently will grant $1 million grants, but they need $350,000 matches, a lot of your local communities can't do that. And Arapahoe County's Shareback program helps them be more competitive for those larger grant programs like Great Outdoors Colorado. So those are some of the things the county just does a job of serving the citizens of the
county. Really lots of detail of all those different projects and others that you mentioned. Do you have a favorite, or do you have one that you'd like to really bring to our attention that you think is especially significant?
Well, Cherry Creek Plat and the Highline, as I mentioned, are probably the ones that I use the most, but there's a marvelous property on Bijou Creek, which is actually east of the fairgrounds, and it's one of the places on Earth that you can actually see and touch the ash layer that was part of the KT boundary, and it's really an inspirational place. And then one that just I can't get out of my mind that just keeps coming back is we worked with the town of Strasburg to help build a marvelous ball field complex in Strasburg, and seeing the folks in that small community that would have a horrible time ever trying to be able to generate enough funding to build that, receive shareback dollars and several grants, and really have a fabulous ball field complex for their residents. So that's sort of the small one that hits me regularly. And then the other one is Redtail project in Aurora, where there's a fully accessible playground that was the dream of a young disabled man in Aurora, and we helped bring that one to fruition. So it's all across the board, from small projects in small towns to accessible playgrounds to really large open space, preservation of open space.
I would agree. Those are really wonderful, wonderful projects. So thank you for kind of bringing those to mind for us. So one more question for you, Linda. Generally speaking, why do you think a healthy, robust open spaces program is important in Arapahoe County to our citizens, to our residents, to the people who visit us?
It's interesting. I this last year and a half, I think all of us that are tied to parks and open space were just really shocked in a good way at the way people embraced and wanted to be outdoors. So having sites that are accessible became critical to people's mental health in this last year. And I think the other thing that we saw is that we don't have nearly enough land set aside to meet that demand. And it's interesting that in Colorado, when you look at especially the counties along the Front Range, the counties have really stepped up. Larimer County, Jefferson County, Adams County, El Paso County, Arapahoe County have really stepped up in a remarkable way to provide a leadership role with the funding that is just critical to the quality of life of our residents. And I've been involved with all of those programs and seen statewide how many counties envy the kind of programs that Arapahoe County has. And I just want to say that I think when I look at the broad span of counties that I've worked with, Arapahoe County is doing an exceptional job. It would just be devastating for us to lose the open space program.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, and thank you for your participation, and thank you so much for all that you do for the outdoors in Colorado, and especially in our area. So now on to
It's
Kevin.
been my privilege.
Well, it's our honor to have you serve with us. So now we're on to Kevin Hogan of the Chamber. So Kevin, the city of Aurora has received almost 116.9, so that makes it $117 million from the sales and use tax since 2004 via grants, joint projects, and sharebacks. Can you talk a little bit about what these funds have enabled the city to do with its open spaces and assets and programs? I know that you are a frequent utilizer of our parks and our trails. So what has open spaces brought to Aurora, to the city of Aurora?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Jackson. I moved to Colorado over 45 years ago, and of course, I think we all move here for the beauty that this state provides. I believe that what this brings to our community is a little bit of what I'm going to talk about is economic development also. I think, in the past year, if anything has taught us, we've learned anything, it's that we have an immense value of our open spaces, parks, and trails, the quality of life that we've all talked about. But as far as our business retention and recruitment, it's vital. We don't have a lot of money like Texas or Florida to enhance companies to come here or retain them by giving them cash handouts. So we've always relied on what I used to say our most powerful tool in Colorado was God, and that's our beautiful outdoors, those beautiful mountains, the beautiful parks and recs that we have in our county. It's all about the quality of life. And I think this year we have realized that these are precious places for our health, our happiness, our quality of life. COVID did a dramatic change to a lot of people in their habits. I believe 48% of our outside assets are being used, 48% more than last year after COVID. You literally couldn't find a paddleboard or a bicycle to buy or get on a golf course or even a Frisbee golf course. I see is real popular. Just overwhelming outdoor use, and what an asset this county has with this open space sales and tax. For what is it, every $100 we spend, 25 cents goes to the great opportunities we have in Arapahoe County. So I just think from a standpoint of an economic development, our population growth is exceptionally fast. The housing projects are moving on and on. We don't have as big a yards we used to. The houses are a little tighter and closer, and so how vital our parks and recreation and trails are to this quality of life. I just am using the bike trails all the time. Every Saturday and Sunday I go out for a nice ride, and I go down Cherry Creek, actually all the way down into Parker. So, I go by the 17-mile house. It's one of my favorites, and take a look at the history. If you haven't had a chance to tour that old stop for the stagecoach, you need to stop over and see that. Even up closer into Glendale is 4 mile. And so, of course, we have the historic 9 mile in Aurora. Everybody doesn't know what does that mean. It's 9 miles by stagecoach to downtown, or 17 miles by stagecoach. So these are wonderful amenities we have. I think from an economic development standpoint, that's what makes us competitive. It's what makes us able to retain companies and corporations with good paying jobs. I think it's really vital to the economic aspect. I know we talked briefly, Shannon did, about the Buckley Buffer project, 700 acres, I believe it is. How important that is for an economic development standpoint. Buckley has over 15,000 people, 97 tenants, produces about $1.3 billion in payroll and purchasing, and that aerospace giant, it's called Buckley Space Base, Buckley Space Base now, contributes so much. So the protection with the Plains Conservation Center on the lower side of Buckley is just a huge asset, not only from an electronic standpoint that there's not large towers that surround Buckley, but also the F-16 is a vital airplane for our national defense, let alone North American defense with Canada. And so Buckley is a very needed military base from an economic standpoint and from a safety standpoint on what a challenging world we live in these days.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah,
I really appreciate the perspective. You mentioned the 9 mile and 17 mile and 4 mile. Are there any other projects that you think are especially interesting or valuable, or something maybe we couldn't have afforded without these funds?
Another small park, but it's been phenomenal. I know Linda is talking about a ballpark out in Strasburg, but Olympic Park in the center of Aurora. lot of people don't know that we bring in some of the largest softball tournaments in the country on weekends. We bring in lady teams because when the ladies travel, both mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. So we're talking about tourist attractions basically because they come in for the sporting opportunities, but often stay for 2 or 3 days. And so who would have ever thought that Arapahoe County assets in Aurora, we are a massive destination, a tourist destination now. So as we bring in thousands of guests to the Gaylord Hotel, as an example, even though it might be in Adams County, it only takes a short drive into Aurora to really use the parks and rec and trails that we have out east along the I-70 corridor, the opportunity for horseback riding and wildlife protection. It just adds on to the assets of what this open space sales tax has brought to the county. So I love Olympic Park. It's close by. I'm not a softball player anymore, but again, from just an economic development aspect, thousands of tournament players that come in, stay at our hotels, eat at our restaurants, benefit all of the community.
Just one more question. Really the same question I asked Linda, and that is, how does a robust, and I think you already really answered it, but I'm going to give you another shot at it. How does the robust open spaces program affect the quality of life? Not just the businesses, which you really spoke eloquently about, but how about the ordinary person's quality of life?
You bet, Commissioner. The shareback with the city is a great example. The city of Aurora, along with the local Rotary Club, helped build a beautiful park, Red Hawk Ridge, down by Southlands area along E470 and about Arapahoe Road. And that serves disadvantaged children. That park was built to handle and help over 500 children within about a mile of that park that are handicapped in wheelchairs and have no access. And so that freed up the city of Aurora for other opportunities in their park and rec department. But that's a small quality of life for somebody maybe very disadvantaged. And you can go to that park and you can see the smiles on those kids and their mothers. Very touching.
It is, and I've been to that park, and it is a beautiful park. And I'll just add before I turn this over to Luke and the rest of you that are online or attending this in all the various ways that you can, that I love the open spaces and parks. I often walk to a trail or to a park, and there's parks and trails all over, and it makes my personal life so much richer. And I really appreciate the open spaces as a person who lives in the city of Aurora. I love the partnerships, and I love the way that we are utilizing the funds that you give us through our open spaces sales and use tax and put it to good use for the enjoyment of everyone. So I think we're ready for your questions now. Luke, take it away.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I'll give you the results of the first polling question, and I'm going to ask you another quick one. 60% of you would be very likely to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else. 33% somewhat likely. 7% are neutral, and nobody is somewhat unlikely or very unlikely. So everybody loves Arapahoe County for all the reasons we've been listing tonight. I'm going to ask, before I ask the second polling question, just a reminder, if you have a question you want to ask any of our panelists, you can dial *3, and that'll put you through to an operator. Our second polling question is, again, on a scale of 1 to 5, using your touchpad on your phone. How satisfied have you been with your interactions with the Arapahoe County government in general? Press 1 if you've been very satisfied. 2 is somewhat satisfied. 3 is neutral or not applicable because you haven't had any interactions with us. 4 is somewhat dissatisfied, and 5 is very dissatisfied. So again, interactions with the Arapahoe County government. 1 is very satisfied. 2 is somewhat satisfied. 3 is neutral or NA. 4 is somewhat dissatisfied, and 5 is very dissatisfied. I'll give you those results before we sign off. We have a few minutes for questions. Let's see. We are. I'm going to start with one from the online viewers. You all sort of touched on really interesting points. I think the economic development point that Kevin mentioned is sort of underrated because, like he said, other states can offer big fat tax breaks to companies that might want to move here. Colorado's sort of golden ticket is quality of life. I mean, because we kind of have it all. We have the mountains, we have the plains, we have bike trails and walking trails. We have great cities, and even taking that a step further, I think Arapahoe County is unique in among Colorado counties because it really has all those things from urban, from the as urban as you can get in Colorado to as rural as you can get in Colorado. So I'm going to start by asking Shannon, what sort of opportunities and challenges does being in such a unique county present to the Open Spaces Department?
Thanks, Luke. Obviously, when you start thinking about the geographic nature of Arapahoe County, we go on average 12 miles north and south and 80 miles east and west. And so what we've done is we've kind of broken the county into three distinct planning areas. We've got the urban part of the western part of the county that's more urbanized. And so we have strategies that work with our municipalities, work with our special districts, work with the flood districts along the corridors of the South Platte, the Cherry Creek, the Highline Canal, and of course the E470 trail. So our program is flexible to really work on those types of projects. Then we have kind of the urban edge part of the county, which includes the fairgrounds, the reservoir, the Buckley Air Force Base, E470 area. This is the area where there's new communities that are being developed. And so our planning efforts kind of shift a little bit there. And then, of course, we have the eastern part of the county, which is, of course, most of the plains, some of the riparian areas. And so our strategies have to encompass all three of these different geographic differences. And so that's one of the challenges, and it makes our program very unique. The nice part about it is that we run a pretty balanced program. When you look at where our projects have been and the investments that we've made throughout the years, they're extremely balanced from all three of these areas.
Good stuff. And I was going to follow up with that with Linda. As someone who worked with great Colorado Outdoors, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. GOCO is how we usually say it. How unusual is Arapahoe County compared to all the other counties when it comes to outdoor type stuff?
Well, it is a very strange geographic dynamic that affects Arapahoe County. To have a county government that's got very urban interests, and then you get out east and you are in the middle of farm country. And Great Outdoors Colorado finds the whole conservation of ranch land to be very intriguing, and has worked with Arapahoe County on saving some of those ranch land parcels out east, but have also helped put surfing on the Platte River. So it's interesting, especially when you get into the challenge of competing for grants, because all of GOCO's grants are competitive. And people will comment, well, wait, this is Arapahoe County. How can they have farmland? Or they want surfing? Right. I don't understand. And if you've got a... so it is a challenge that I think Shannon and the department have done a good job of. But you look at Jefferson County and it's much more mountainous, and you look at Larimer County and again it's foothills and mountains. And then Adams County is much more rural, but doesn't yet have the big urban areas. They're getting them, but not the same. So it's a challenge, and I think that the Open Spaces Department has recognized that and done a good job.
Well, and to Kevin's point, a ballpark in the middle of Aurora is part of that roster of amenities as well. And as much as we can bring that to urban families and children and that kind of thing, that's really a tremendous asset that we have as well. So we have a caller here. Go ahead, Linda.
I think the other thing that's really beneficial is that people in Arapahoe County have realized they don't have to go to the mountains to recreate. That the broad spectrum of opportunities within Arapahoe County means you can recreate and have a really great experience within 10 minutes of home. You don't have to spend an hour on the road.
That's a great point. And an hour is probably an underestimate as far as getting up to the mountains these days. We have a caller with a question here. I believe it's for Shannon. This is Jean Ann in Aurora. Jean Ann, go ahead. You are live.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jean Ann. I live in Aurora, and my question comment actually has to do about the Highline Canal. And I don't have a map of Arapahoe County, so I don't know how much of the Highline is in Arapahoe County. But number one, thank you for putting that underpass by Hamden and Colorado Boulevard, because I would just avoid that. But I had a goal of walking the whole Highline Canal from beginning to end, and I didn't quite make it. But I have actually a request. Is it possible to put some more benches on the Highline Canal and strategic places for us that need to sit down every once in a while? And also, there was a booklet that the Denver Water Board put out that went to the whole Highline Canal. It's wonderful. It's a little. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about? A little spiral book.
I certainly am, and actually, that booklet has been updated just recently with
because that was going to be my next question. Is can you please update that? Okay.
Yes. Again, we've partnered with the Highline Canal Conservancy. And we spent about a year just recently to really plan out how we can make some amenity improvements along the canal. There's a couple of projects that are starting or in the planning stages in Aurora that's close to Laredo Elementary School, close to about Colfax and Power, close in that area. And part of the analysis that we did is more amenities along the canal, such as benches, perhaps comfort stations, restrooms, and other things that would really enhance the experience. One of the first things you'll start to see fairly soon is better signage, because there are some areas where you can actually get lost on the canal. So watch this space for the next 3 to 5 years. Some of those things will start to take place. Hopefully the benches will come sooner than 3 to 5 years, but again, we're making improvements.
Well, and to Jean Ann's point, the Highline Canal, I think, is one of the assets that demonstrates the value of partnerships, because it stretches across so many jurisdictions. All right, we are going to take one more phone question, but before we do that, I just want to read you quickly the results of our second polling question. How satisfied are you about your interactions with the Arapahoe County Government? 20% are very satisfied, 33% are somewhat satisfied, 40% are neutral or it's not applicable, 7% are somewhat dissatisfied, and 0 so far are very dissatisfied. So we're always trying to bump those numbers toward the very satisfied mark. So thank you for responses on that. And now I think this is probably going to be our last question. We have Becky, and she's got a question for Shannon. Go ahead, Becky, you're live.
Okay. I was just kind of wondering how you determine the use of open spaces and things like walking paths and biking trails and those kinds of things.
Thank you for that question. Main things that we do whenever we buy properties or when it comes time to develop it, we do a lot of community input. We hold open houses, surveys, We look at the various needs. We've got in some areas a needs and opportunity study that we developed through a lot of citizen surveys and citizen input, and that drives a lot of our decision making in regards to where trails are needed, what types of amenities. Now, there is obviously certain things that we cannot do with certain properties, and so it's all within the parameters of what's possible. But we do spend a lot of time getting citizen input as far as what types of amenities, such as we spent quite a bit of time on one of our recent parks that really provided a lot of good information in regards to what the needs were. A lot of it at that particular point was, a dog park, a small playground, walking trails. So it really helped in the design of that particular park.
And just to follow up on that, have you noticed any obvious trends in recent years about what people want more of or less of?
Yes, we've seen a lot of interest and desire to improve our walking trails, as well as I think number 2 is probably dog parks. Number 3 is pickleball court. And again, we don't necessarily have it, but our municipal partners are seeing a lot of use and a lot of desire for those.
Interesting. All right, we had a last-minute caller come in here. This is Lynn from Centennial. Go ahead, Lynn, you are live. Oh, Lynn, I think she dropped off, but the question was, if the tax does not get reauthorized, what happens then?
Well, obviously, the tax supports quite a bit of properties, amenities, and so we would really lose the financial support for a lot of those special places that we have. And so it would have a pretty detrimental effect on both the county and our municipal partners. And so we would really have to look at finding other ways to be able to maintain what we have. And obviously, certain things would need to be deferred or just not done. We certainly couldn't afford to expand our offerings at that particular point. So that's how vital this tax is.
And as we mentioned at the top of the call, this is a decision that the Board of County Commissioners will be making in the coming weeks. So stay tuned to our website and our various news outlets and so forth. We'll be sending out information about that. We are also doing an event like this for each district. Tomorrow night, we're doing Commissioner Baker's District 3, and then next week we have Commissioner Holan's district and Kerry Warren Gully's district. So if you know someone who lives in those areas, please let them know to tune in. And like I mentioned earlier, the recording of this will be available on our website within about 24 hours, so you could review the slides and see the numbers. There were kind of a lot of stats that we threw at you. And I just wanted to thank Commissioner Jackson, Shannon Carter, and then Linda Strand and Kevin Hogan for joining us. It's been a tremendous conversation, and hopefully you found it useful. And thank you very much.
Thank you.